Thank you, guest speakers. Of course, my name is Eddie. Mr. Dick, you spoke very well and visiting Nigeria very well often, and also Congress people here. And you're one of us, above all. Now, with a little connection, I think moving gradually, as Mr. Finn said, it's not a one-way direction. Get there, get small, then keep on moving. How can you assist us in getting closer to these Congress people? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. What's your name?
My name is Eddie Osu. I'm the president of the organization.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Eddie. Let me just say that your organization is one of many organizations in the U.S. advocating for the same cause. I just want you to be aware of that. I don't know how far you have gone, but other organizations have already gone to Congress, like yourself. Other organizations have already gone to State Department. Other organizations have already signed petitions. I remember there's a petition I signed to President. About 150 of us signed it as organization leaders. I'm not sure if you had a chance to sign it. And the question that you asked, folks ask me that because, and I'm very happy to have Attorney Bruce here. And I think it was very important to have him here to share with you how Washington works and how the strategy works. And what he said today is very critical in terms of the way forward, all right? Let me try and sum up my response. Now, we have lobbies that engage U.S. government that he's able to do, okay? And lobbies are very effective because they can critically engage the federal administration, right, the executive branch, and also the congressional branch. We do have the White House Faith-Based Office of Neighborhood and Partnerships, which has 14 faith-based cabinet offices in the government, including an office in the Department of Justice, the Office of Religious and Global Affairs in the State Department, Homeland Security Faith-Based Office, which is an international component, and others. Because of my position as leading the Caribbean and African Faith-Based Conference, I do have access to the administration through those cabinet offices. And what happens is that sometimes the faith-based director puts me on with the secretary. For example, the Secretary for Homeland Security, or the Secretary of State, or the Secretary for U.S. Department of Homeland Security, or the Attorney General himself or herself. So I do get chances to have that access. I don't know how much more I can do. I think what I am doing in my daily conversations with the faith-based cabinet offices, I make Nigeria a significant issue, okay? In my last briefing, which was 3 weeks ago with Homeland Security Faith-Based Center, Nigeria took up half of the meeting and the killings. So it has always been documented, and these documents go to the Domestic Policy Council, and it goes to the faith-based advisor, and it gets some attention, but that's minimal. What we do today helps because it brings together people that are concerned. Yes. But what I think needs to be the way forward, and someone asks my brother here if the UN is aware. Blanketly, I can tell you the United Nations is aware. The US State Department publishes an extensive report on the killings in Nigeria. That report is accessible by all the various international and multinational organizations and around the world. My concern is, I watch the hearings on Capitol Hill and I notice the attendance are low. The hearings, the last hearing with Sheila Jackson Lee and others, most of the Congress members were not present.
Wow.
The room was very scanty, but they have a hearing and it is a congressional hearing. The content of what they say is very rich. I am shocked. They have more information than us. Based on what I hear in their presentations. Their statements are very strong and powerful. When a Nigerian listens to the statement, you say, wow, Nigeria is going to tremble to hear the way these US people are speaking. But nothing happens after that. And that is why what Attorney Bruce says is important. We need preemptive action. We need to have some kind of strategy. I made notes of what he said. And it is the same thing that anybody who does advocacy on Capitol Hill can tell you. So my suggestion is this. The Nigerian groups in the US, we have hundreds of Igbo groups. We have the advocacy groups like yourself. Then we have the indigenous group, for example, the Imo State Association, the Anambra Association, the Onitsha Association, the Urala Progressive Union, and all of these indigenous groups that represents our tribal groups within Igbo land. All these groups need to be contacted. All these groups are resourceful. All these groups have money. Okay? So we need to form some kind of alliance. It's not just one organization doing it. And I like what he said. It was very comprehensive because he addressed the issue of the individualism, the issue of self. We have to be selfless. It can't be, we have to forget about whose name is on the whole thing. We need all the indigenous groups. We need the advocacy groups. We are the largest, we are the most impactful group. We have the highest number of black medical doctors among black ethnic group in this country. We have a lot to celebrate in terms of our resonance of the Nigerian people in America. In terms of the STEM, we are seen as the most smartest group in the world is Nigerian, and they are Igbos in London. The statistics is there to say who we are and how important we are. But as Attorney Bruce says, what relevance is that to US policy? We need to now look at US Constitution. He mentioned religious freedom as one, but not just religious freedom, but what are the US Constitution in terms of democracy, the other human rights issues within the US Constitution. We need to tie that. We also need to be in communication with the Biafra leaders. Are we in communication with them? There are also other Biafra groups here in the US that are active. We need to form alliances with those groups. Come together, because what he's talking about is going to cost money. What he's talking about is going to need daily people working on it. It needs a constant, proper administrative structure set up around this. The truth is that, do we have the people? Yes. Do we have the money? Yes. Do we have the passion? A number of groups do. Do we need to do a lot of mobilization? Yes. Many of us are too much at ease in Zion. We are too comfortable here in the US. We need to be more proactive, and we have to do the hard work. The way I can help where I am, one of the things I can try and do is see if I can convince the White House to host a hearing or a briefing on the killings of Christians in Nigeria. I can try to see if we can get the faith-based office or the Office of Religious Freedom, or to even maybe push a State Department hearing, maybe the Office of Global Justice, Civilian Security. But I do know that even the last Religious Freedom Conference, I was invited as a speaker. I felt honored under the Trump administration to be invited as a speaker. They didn't invite me to speak on Nigeria issues or the killings. But when I went to that conference, I saw lots of Nigerians who flew in to be there to make Nigerian voice be heard. And while I was there, I met with Nancy Pelosi. She was there. The Secretary of State was there. The Sam Brownback, the Religious Freedom Ambassador, was there. And I had personal conversations with them in the back room about Nigeria. And I found out that they are aware of what's going on in Nigeria. They are trying to do something about it. But what our lobbies have said to us to have the real impact is where I think we need to go. Thank you.
I could just add, it's very critical in public advocacy. You have to have an art of expression. It has to be succinct. You're dealing with people who are very busy. You call it an elevator speech, you know. You're going to be with a important person in an elevator. What can you say in 3 minutes that will stick with him? And I've written columns. I've written well over 5 million words, books, columns. And I always spend over half of my time in writing the column in composing the very first sentence. Because I have to think 15,000 different ways. What's going to cause the audience to read the second sentence, right? You don't have a captive audience. So you have to be, I don't want to sound pedantic, you have to be very, very skilled with words. And what am I going to say? And what's going to be evoking my audience? Who's going to be reading this? So that in a very short amount of time, you can have a lot of impact. Because we live in a very, very fast-paced world. You know, the news comes 24 hours a day, it's stale after 10 minutes or 12 minutes. And that art of advocacy is something that needs to be honed in order to make our narrative understood and appreciated. Again, by speaking in metaphors and images that your audience recognizes, because it builds upon their own experience. Because all countries and all people have had experiences of oppression. And you say, this is like it. Now I get it. The Boston Tea Party, And that has to be part of the overall program that has been admirably, expounded here to move forward. But I want to repeat, it has to be 24 hours a day. It can't be episodic. It's just we didn't win the Revolutionary War on July 4th, 1776. It was 7 years later, after Yorktown and some negotiations.
Do we need lobbies?
Yeah.
Do we need that type of support on the Hill?
Well, listen.
You can speak to that.
The fact is that politics can be very flukish. Things that don't have anything immediately concerning you can work in your favor. I mean, who knows? Maybe Buhari dies tomorrow or something like that, and there's convulsions and opportunities arise. And that's why you have to try to push in all dimensions. You never know what one is going to work at the time, because we don't control everything. Right? We don't control everything. And that's why, whether you call it a lobbyist, we certainly need a public advocate in the Congress.
Yes.
Not somebody who's there because they made a political contribution, because they can explain. This is why Biafra is good for the United States. You can have AFRICOM there. It will adopt, you talk about our Constitution, separation of powers. We'll make the legislature the first African country with a legislature that really will control the executive. So we don't have, kings who amend the Constitution every 5 years so they can serve for life. And that's something that the American people understand that, because that's kind of the crown jewel of our own Constitution. But I say, I don't think, we can't solve all of these granular details, at this time. But I think enough has been said to say, all right, we at least know what kind of meeting needs to be held as a follow-up to go to the next level.
I'll take 2 more questions because we're running over time. Okay, your name and then the question, please.
Thank you. My name is Evans Amoforo. This question is for Attorney Bruce Pine. Can you answer this question? Can individuals sue a government? Example, in Nigeria, in these killings, the army is taking part in the killing, the police is taking part in the killing, and groups in Nigeria have been suing the Nigerian government for self-determination, and it has taken years and years and years. And I could remember I learned that you had a case in Washington against some Nigerian officer.
Buhari, yeah.
Yes. Can this group take this case up to ICC?
Well, let me answer, since I've been in that arena
Thank
a
you.
long time. We have something in the United States called the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, but we have exceptions for state sponsors of terrorism. Right now, there are 4 state sponsors of terrorism that are listed: Syria, Iran, Sudan, and Cuba again. And you can sue them for extrajudicial killings and torture. Now, Nigeria, however, is not on the list right now of state sponsors of terrorism. And therefore, under the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, you can sue Nigeria. They're called commercial exceptions. But generally speaking, they would be shielded from being sued as a country, just like the victims of 9/11 were not able to sue Saudi Arabia because it wasn't a listed country complicit in international terrorism. Now, there's nothing to say, however, that part of our program can't be asking Congress to amend the statute, because there's nothing about a statute that's fixed in granite. It's not like international law protects countries with sovereign immunity. And I do believe, because one of the cases I was involved in, the State Department came in, suggested immunity for Buhari and his henchmen in a Torture Victims Protection Act case, that Congress can eliminate that discretion that the executive branch now has in order to enable the victims to sue in federal court here without the biases that would be confronted in Nigerian court, and that would cause them to think a second time. Right now, you know that the Nigerian SARS, all the military, all the security forces, they know that they can act with impunity because they're open and notorious. They don't try to hide anything, right? Why do they do that?
Control the courts.
Yeah, exactly. Buhari controls the courts. He manipulated even the election challenges after Atiku was running. You know, he manipulates who the Chief Justice is to get his results. So there's nothing there. There's no separation of powers. So the idea that you have is a good one, but it would take an amendment to statutes, which surely we can champion in the Congress. Now, Saudi Arabia was put in a kind of a twilight zone by concerted efforts from the victims of 9/11 to not let the country escape completely with impunity. But that was in large part because the victims were in the United States, so they all had members of Congress representing them. Right now, you know, largely the victims in Nigeria, they don't occupy any particular district. They aren't represented by a member of Congress or the Senate. It's not impossible to get some sympathy, but it's much more difficult.
My question is, how do we put Nigeria in the state-sponsored terrorism?
Well, the statutes in the United States leave that question up largely to the Secretary of State, but the Secretary of State oftentimes responds to what the President wants. And it is largely a political decision. We removed Iraq from the state sponsors of terrorism when we wanted to help it in its war against Iran, and then stuck it back on the state sponsor of terrorism when Saddam was no longer our friend, and then we took them off after we overthrew him. So it's a political exercise, but ultimately the authority right now would lie with Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State. And certainly we can certainly advocate Nigeria being a state sponsor of terrorism, because it's rather notorious they're in cahoots with Boko Haram, which actually has tentacles actually beyond Nigeria into Cameroon and Mali and in the ECOWAS nations. And in some sense, even launching a campaign to get it listed can be useful, because even if it doesn't succeed, it heightens the understanding of the evil of the Buhari administration. And I'm sure, I can guarantee you, Buhari would be frightened. You do look, the next day you look in the Foreign Agents Registration Act submissions, the State Department and the Justice Department, we tried to campaign, he'd hire 5 new lobbyists, paying them $10 million a year. I guarantee you.
That's what that is.
Wow, wow. We have another question?
Oh, thank you, Eliza. I am so impressed, honestly, overwhelmed. I'm just very grateful that I had the opportunity of being here today to listen to these great minds, especially the revelation of Bruce about the reality we have to really approach. Yeah, it brings closer to what we are really looking out for and what we're supposed to be doing already. You know, so I'm very thankful about this. Mine is not really a question. Mine is just a kind of appreciation for all of you and for opening, for coming out here today. Is a kind of solidarity already for us, because you're human and you understand what we are passing through. And you opened your mind and your heart to tell us the reality and the approach we should be looking at in getting closer to our dream. So it brings us closer to telling those back home the reality, not the killings, not the agitations, not the violence, but a really defined process of relationship, embracing those who can really come in and help us, and fulfilling whatever relationship terms that needs to be fulfilled. So today I'm grateful, today I'm thankful to you all, and today I've taken a great story of reality to my heart and back home to those at home. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you. Thank you. One last question.
Your name and the question.
Okay. Oh, COVID's gone, huh? Good afternoon, everybody. I am Honorable Chief Joe Gaiju. My question is, having listened to the gathering here today, I noticed that we have the diplomatical approach to what is happening in Nigeria is real, it's going to be real, and it's going to be far-fetched. Now, my question is that since, as we speak here now, the killing of Igbos is still ongoing. So what approach, what choice do we have to stop it right now? Because if we leave it the way it is, unchallenged, that part of Nigeria will be exterminated. Thank you.
You want to make, anyone want to talk about
Yeah,
that?
I just want to say though before that, what Dr. Lawrence, right? Yeah. Dr. Lawrence opened up in a very comprehensive overview of the situation in Nigeria, and categorically documented categorically what happened, the forms that they come in, whether as bandits, herdsmen, Boko Haram, the various forms and the various aspects of manipulation that takes place. And I think it set the foundation for our conversation this evening, and it sets the foundation for where we go in terms of advocacy. And so I didn't want this to be closed without pointing that out, that was very important. And that is what we now need to act on. You're right in terms of right now somebody's killing somebody while we are speaking. And I know that before we go home tonight, those of us who are here on WhatsApp, we will get a text message of who was killed this afternoon or this morning. We will get some video images sometime this evening or by tomorrow morning, because it's an ongoing killing. My nephews in Igbo land, some of them are in the village right now. They text me, it's in my phone, about the gunshots and all of that. And we are the ones that have to be sending money to sustain them, because the more the violence goes up, the prices of food and services go up. Now, when you asked the question earlier, one of the things that came in my mind was that the business sector of Nigeria, the people who have business interests, real estate interests, and investment interests in Nigeria needs to be engaged, because the more the violence increase, it affects their business capacity. It devalues their real estate, it devalues their businesses. And so we need to know the language in which we approach and mobilize our fellow Nigerians. For example, the Nigerian Chamber of Commerce, or the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce, and all these groups, the Bar Association. So every group in Nigeria right now needs to know that their interest is being affected. Now, I was invited here by some of the organizers, so I'm not a member of your group. For me today was also a learning experience as to what the group is advocating about. I saw the press conference for the first time when I came in the room. So I came with no scripts or notes. I came with an open mind, just to share from my heart. But let's say I am having the understanding that we are advocating against the killings, one, but I think you're also, or primarily more advocating for Biafra. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Right. If that is what we are trying to do, then that is where the attorney's systematic strategy is going to be important, because as he talks about, we need to, when you go to government, you got to come with statistical data, numbers, who are behind what you're doing, all of that. And so I think if we're advocating for Biafra, let us not do it in isolation, but let us communicate with the other leaders of Biafra as well. Biafra is being organized in Europe, as you know. I am in touch with some of the Biafra leaders. We have Biafra leaders in Canada as well. Biafra leaders in Norway. We have Biafra leaders out there in London, in these other Germany, in these other places, Italy and stuff like that. And so the alliances we need to make the connections with them, but the strategy. So I think what we need to do is have a quick debriefing after this, and then we leave here with a decision. Because if we don't leave here with a decision, we are partially wasting our time. That's my suggestion.
I can't resist sharing a statement made during our own Revolutionary War period from our famous diplomat Benjamin Franklin. And he was speaking to the colonial audience. He says, "If we don't hang together, we assuredly will all hang separately." And that's basically what we're confronting here. Secondly, with regard to the gentleman's question, I don't want to overstate it, but when it's known, and it will filter, I'm sure, very quickly into Nigeria, that we will be seeking accountability for those who are involved in the atrocities, that they aren't going to have impunity forever, that when justice doesn't sleep, they should tremble when they understand that God's justice, is just and will not sleep forever. Some of them may be a little more inhibited to think this is not going to last forever. What happens when justice comes calling? And that may at least diminish some of the horrors in the short run.
What we would rather have the civilized world do is at least to make some statements that can inhibit them from going forward. I know they get scared with moves like this one now because they are being exposed. Because most of the things they do in the shadows. They kill a lot of people and bury them privately. They can come out as civilians, go back, wear their uniforms, and come back to the same scene as soldiers trying to protect, and take the dead bodies and go and bury on their own. So most of these things, they are aware of the public outcry, but they're trying to protect themselves by doing these things privately. So if the world tells them, oh, we know what is going on, they will stop. Like, there's a little piece of cessation these last few weeks because of the Twitter thing that went out and all that, it got condemned. So we want to see the government saying something. Let it be condemnation. They do these things in the privacy of private house or White House. They don't say it out. That's what I think.
But I think what even
They're on C-SPAN in those places.
what resonates even more if they say, and our laws are going to hold you accountable. For example, that's what we did in World War I. We said to the opponents, don't worry, once this war is over, we're going to have international justice, and you will be accountable. It is also done in World War II to try to deter some of the atrocities of Adolf Hitler. So when they have the leaders saying, okay, there is going to be justice, whether it's the International Criminal Court or International Court of Justice, or in some other special tribunal that was done in Rwanda, done in former Yugoslavia, then say it's not going to deter everybody. But some people will think about it, and every life saved is precious.
Thank you so much. Let's thank our amazing speakers for their expertise and their heart. Applause, please. Thank you, thank you. We're almost done.